Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to an intrusive thought.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I was watching FNAF lore videos and I was like, I want to watch this with people. And now I'm going to watch it with people.
And
it's
now
going to be
we're
really
here.
fun. Yeah, now we're here.
Thanks for having us, Rui.
You're so welcome. Hello,
Yeah, this is gonna
everybody.
be the stream of all time. I'm excited.
It's definitely going to be a stream.
Yeah,
So what's
that's what I'm
happening
saying.
is we're watching Wendigoon's video of the complete Five Nights at Freddy's story explained. It's about a year old, but Security Breach was definitely out a year ago. So like this should cover everything, right?
Is this accurate in your opinion?
I don't know. I haven't seen it.
Oh my god, so we'll
think
all
I'm-
see it for the first time.
I think I'm the only one who's seen it, and as far as I
Ezra's
know,
seen
it's accurate. But like, out of the three of us, I'm definitely the least knowledgeable in general of FNAF-related things.
I
Ooh.
know more about FNAF than I ever thought that I would, like ever. Like,
I am close. Oh, yeah, keep going. My bad.
no, go ahead, by all means.
No, you guys are much more knowledgeable than me. I've only gone through a third of Matt Pat's theories.
Or I've never watched a MatPat video since like
Oh.
2012. I think you know more than me.
Oh, so I'm only a third of the way through.
I've actually never watched a MatPat video. I've watched like everyone but MatPat. to be
Like
Consider
in general,
yourself
you've never watched a single game theory.
No, I haven't.
That's actually kind of wild.
That
That
That's
is a little
impressive.
crazy.
Yeah. I'm built different, what can I say?
Yeah.
Also, if you
Maybe-
hear like birds and stuff, it's because my window is open, like right next to
Yeah,
my
it's because I'm
PC.
here. There's a bird
Invite
in the
them
Discord
in.
call.
I'm gonna teach them the FNAF lore.
Teach them.
Yeah.
Teach the birds.
Alright, so I'm gonna get this video started. You can let me know how volume is and stuff.
I will let you know. Thank you.
Yeah, let's fucking go.
Five Nights at Freddy's has quickly become one of the most popular video game IPs ever. Five Nights at Freddy's
I played
currently
those
has
games.
9 games in its main series, as well as over a dozen books written about it and countless fan games. Not only that, but even people who hate the games have to admit that it was probably the most impactful indie horror series of all time. And the craziest part about it is, to this day, no one really knows what happened. Like, if
I
you
like his
play
shirt.
through the games, it's
is a good
very
shirt.
clear that there is a story
It has palm
happening
trees
in
on
the
it.
background.
Yeah. I've
However,
played
the
1, 2,
gameplay
and
always
4.
takes center stage.
as
And
far as
despite the
Ooh.
countless
Not
Reddit
3?
threads and YouTube
No, not
videos
3.
made on the topic,
Oh, you should play
there
3.
still doesn't
3 is
seem to
fun.
be a clear answer of
I've
what
also played
happened
Security
in the
Breach.
games themselves.
Oh,
so I'm
that's
here
a
to throw
good
my
one.
hat
I haven't
in the
played
ring
any of
and
those.
present to you what I believe to
You
be
really
the story
shouldn't.
of the
It's
Five
not
Nights
great.
at Freddy's series. See, this video started out,
Yeah,
I
you
just wanted
shouldn't.
to cover the FNAF VHS tapes, because a couple people, specifically
Squimpus
Squimpus
McGrimpus.
McGrimpus,
Oh, have you never
has
seen the
made
Squimpus McGrimpus
fantastic
videos?
horror
No.
set
They're
within the
unironically really
universe
good.
of Five Nights
They're
at
really
Freddy's,
well made.
but taking its own story direction with its own characters and events. However, after getting all of my research done for that, and then thinking how I would describe it to you all, it wouldn't make a lot of sense to someone who wasn't familiar with the Five Nights series. So I asked myself, what is the minimal amount of information I need to tell you about the Five Nights series in order for you to understand the VHS tapes? And that eventually devolved into me breaking down the entire story with all of the characters and major events. So I'm doing great. However, I'm only partially joking on that, because I do believe that the Five Nights at Freddy's storyline is a very interesting story
Ooh,
that deserves to be
I've
told.
seen that
However,
scene
if you're
before.
familiar with the series at all, then you probably know that the problem with telling the story is the story itself. See, the story of the game takes place across the first 7 entries. The games in chronological order, or at least my chronological order, because we can't even agree on when the games happened. But in my chronological order, it goes 4, 2, 1, 5, 3, 6, 7.
I've never seen somebody say that 4
and the
was
reason
first.
that
That's really
it's so
That's my
confusing
bank
for
passcode.
newcomers to the series to try to
Yeah, I was
figure
gonna
out
say
what's
remember
going
that.
on,
It's gonna be on the
because
quiz
anytime
later.
you
Oh,
search
no.
something like Five Nights at Freddy's Theory, you're greeted with videos from 5 years ago, whenever the third game was out, so we didn't know the events in the fourth game were going to happen. But then the theories from the fourth game didn't know that the events of the fifth game were going to happen. So people kept trying to glue together a puzzle because all the pieces weren't out yet. But now I, in the future, with the privilege of hindsight, can put together the puzzle the way that I believe it was always meant to be viewed. And I'm going to do that in a kind of controversial way. I want this video to serve, again, not only as my take on the timeline for those out there who are a fan of the series, but also as an introductory point so that new people coming in are able to view all the information and better understand the story. And when you
so
look
if you're
at
a
the
newbie to
entire
FNAF,
series
this
as
video
one
should be good for
narrative,
you.
I think
Oh,
it becomes
that's
far
nice.
more interesting and far more terrifying. So in order to achieve both of those ends, and again putting emphasis on the fact that this is a cool story that deserves to be told, I am simply not going to explain myself. At least not entirely explain myself. Like, several of the things on this board go against the majority of the community's interpretation of what happened. So whenever I have a real controversial take, I'm going to explain that. But like over here, I have one of William's children listed as being named Evan. In order for you to understand the story, I don't need to sit
One of
here
the
for 10
children
minutes
of
and
Purple
tell
Guy.
you about we got the name
Yeah.
Evan because
Can't
in
believe
the
Purple Guy
survival book,
Fox.
which is an accompany book for the games, they found
Possibly
a
the
series
biggest
of
plot
numbers
twist
on
in the
one
series.
page and then added them together by the page number at the bottom and then went over to a letter grid and input those values and got the name Evan. Because if you're not familiar with the
Evanescence.
series,
FNAF fans are
that's how we
fucking
found
wild.
out
That's
everything.
crazy.
And again, while I think stuff like that is cool, more people, at least currently, are focused on if his name's Evan or not, rather than the entire plot and story of
Evanescence,
what
like
happened.
Evanescence.
And I think that the latter is
Evanescence,
far
that's
more
what I'm
interesting.
saying.
So I know this has been a long introduction, but there's a
My
lot
favorite
to
part of
explain.
FNAF
As
is
always,
when
there's going to be
Freddy comes into the
timestamps
room
in
and says,
description
"Wake
for
me
what
up
I'm describing.
inside."
But I'm going to go through the timeline or my opinion of the timeline
Ezra, if you
for
were
the
an
Five Nights at
animatronic,
Freddy's
I
video
think
game
you'd be
series, as well
Chica.
as talk about the
That makes
characters.
sense.
And then from
We are
there,
both birds.
we will begin
You'd carry
talking
around a
about the
little cupcake.
VHS tapes and
I do like
other YouTube
cupcakes.
horror shorts based around
They're like
Five Nights
cakes
at
in a
Freddy's,
cup.
'cause I
That's
think
so
they're really
cute.
cool. And if any of this sounds
Sorry,
cool to
I'll pay
you,
attention.
stick around after the ad as we're going to get into pretty much the entirety of the Five Nights at Freddy's series. But before you listen to me
Nope.
ramble for an absurd length
No
of time,
ads.
let's make sure you're listening. The first thing to understand about the Five Nights at Freddy's series is that at its core, it's the story of two people. And those two people are William Afton and Henry Emily. Henry and William were business partners, and they went in as partners together on a new branch of children's entertainment. This new style of children's entertainment would be demonstrated on their first business venture together, a restaurant known as Fredbear's Family Diner. With later entries of the series, as many people have pointed out, you could think of the restaurants as a sort of Chuck E. Cheese establishment. The kind of places that would
Hi,
have
Kora,
singing
Ezra, and Rui.
animatronics,
Hello,
as
welcome to
well as
chat.
arcade
Welcome to
games
FNAF.
and pizza parties for children of all ages. However, at least in the
If we ever
beginning,
off collab, can we go
Fredbear's
to
wasn't
Chuck E.
like that.
Cheese?
It was a much smaller establishment.
Did you know
Allowed
that Chuck E.
in.
Cheese has
to
lore?
animatronics. The down-to-earth
What?
funny nature
I will
What?
tell you. I
is
will tell you
even
the Chuck E.
present in
Cheese
the
lore
name
later
of
when we're not watching
Fredbear's
this.
Family Diner. It certainly seems
I'm
like
so
a passion
curious
project.
now.
Not
They still
only
sell
in the
beer
name
at Chuck
and
E.
very
Cheese, or does
nature
that
of the
depend on what state you
children's
live in?
entertainment business,
know.
but also
They sell
in the
beer?
attitudes of the
They
two
definitely
owners.
used to.
From everything we see later in the series,
They
it
sell
seems
pizza,
like
right?
Henry was the
Yeah.
business and managerial
You can actually
side
DoorDash
of
the pizza, but
partnership,
it's not called
while
Chuck E.
William
Cheese. It's
was
called
more interested
Pascali's
in the
Pizza.
day-to-day operations and specifically the construction of the animatronics. What made these animatronics unique, and the thing that set their business apart from other competitors, was the addition of something William dubbed as spring lock suits. The core idea behind a spring lock suit is that it is initially a normal animatronic. However, if someone were to twist the gear on the back of the costume, the animatronic parts would slip to the sides and allow a worker to step inside of the animatronic itself and use it as a costume. Whereas at other establishments, the children would see an animatronic on stage and then a worker would come out to serve them pizza in a kind of dollar store mascot version of the costume. At Fredbear's Family Diner, they could watch the animatronics get off stage themselves and come play with the kids. It seems like in the beginning that was part of the goal for William, to keep the magic alive in the mind of a child. And in the beginning, it seems that they had such humble beginnings that William and Henry were the people running the costumes themselves. Despite being owners, they would take the time to step into their own respective spring-lock suits and go play and entertain the children. Henry would pilot the restaurant's namesake, the Fredbear suit itself, whereas William would slip into the secondary mascot of the business, a golden
Ezra, you
rabbit
could be that
costume,
one
which
too.
would later be known to the community as Spring Bonnie.
Yeah, it's
Perhaps
kinda
part of
orang.
this dedication to the
yellow.
project came in the form of their own children. William having 3 children himself, Elizabeth, Michael, and Evan, and Henry having 1 daughter
Michael
by
is
the
a
name of
robot.
Charlie. I know that in the books it mentions Henry
Yeah.
has a son as
Oh,
well.
I was
However,
right?
he's
No.
never mentioned anywhere in
Oh.
the games. So again, I'm just talking the games. It doesn't exist up here.
Kind of.
Something
You'll
that I
see.
want to mention really quick on this timeline is if an event is inside of a red box, that is a definite year that that event happened. There's not a lot of surefire times we get in the series, so the few that you see with the red box are times we know this happened on this date. The blue boxes are more so guesstimates. In other words, the thing I'm about to talk about says 1980, but it could have also been 81 or late 70s, or the year doesn't really matter, 1980 is just a guess. Looking at the timeline, we can see that William and Henry started Fredbear's Family Diner around 1970. And then, thanks in no small part to the dedication of the owners themselves, as well as the invention of spring-lock suits, a decade later, they are able to expand their brand, as around 1980, William opens Afton Robotics, and William and Henry continue to expand the business itself with Fazbear Entertainment, which becomes a sort of industrial chain of Freddy Fazbear restaurants. Things were going great for the two. Henry was continuing to manage the brand as it was expanding, and William continued to create more odd and interesting robotic figures. One of these inventions that we see in the games is a small Fredbear plush that seems to have a camera inside of it, as well as a series of animatronics later dubbed Funtime animatronics that it seems William was building during this time. Everything was going great, and it seemed that nothing would stop the pair from accomplishing great things in the realm of children's entertainment. That was until the accident that happened in 1983. For whatever reason, it seems that Evan was particularly terrified of the animatronics his father was building.
I would
And
be
no
too,
one's
the
really
fuck?
certain why.
Evanescence.
People who have gathered information from the books have speculated that perhaps William was purposefully making his child afraid of the animatronics because William knew that they were dangerous. Because, you know, animatronic suits that have like wires and gears holding the animatronic pieces from flying back into place and impaling you, it's called foreshadowing, would be dangerous to go around, especially if William is building them in his house. From what we see in future games, it even seems that William had put cameras throughout his house.
I feel
so
like
that
maybe
while
you
he
should
was
just
working
tell your
on his
child not to
animatronics,
go
he
inside
could
the
monitor
suit instead
exactly
of,
what
like,
his
you
son
know,
was
using
doing.
some sort
In
of
the meantime, Evan's older
terror
brother,
therapy
Michael,
to get them
began
away
Yeah,
to
going through
torment
all
Evan
this.
over his fear of these
Well, yeah, but have you ever
creatures.
met
See, at this point,
anyone
the
with
brand had
children?
extended from not only
Fair enough.
Fredbear's Family Diner, but there was also
No.
Fredbear and Friends, and there were several
You-
other mascots
Okay.
that would stand on stage along with Fredbear. One of these was a character by the name of Foxy. So
I know that
Michael
guy.
would wear a Foxy mask and begin tormenting his brother because he thought it was funny. William didn't
Foxy
seem
kinda
to
has Dilf
mind this,
energy, I can't
perhaps
lie.
even encouraging it, as
Fair
he
enough,
saw it as
fair enough.
another way to
Smash.
keep his son safe. The events of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, which again according to me is the earliest game in the timeline, followed the nightmares of young Evan Afton.
Dude,
the
I
reason
hate
the
FNAF 4.
animatronics
I
look
tried
so
playing
over the
it,
top,
I
creepy, and
fucking hate it.
terrifying is because
I don't
these
wanna
aren't
play it,
real
it looks so
animatronics.
scary.
These are the
It is
nightmare
entirely
imaginations
audio-based.
of a young child who's
Like,
afraid of his
it's
father's
horrible.
creations.
Oh.
And
Yeah, like,
Evan is
actually
spending these
entirely.
sleepless nights trying to evade these creatures of his own imagination. That is until the end of the week, whenever Afton and his family go to Fredbear's Family Diner. While there, Michael and his friends, all wearing the mascot's faces, begin to torment Evan and make him get closer and closer to the animatronics themselves. Until Michael makes a joke that Evan wants to give Fredbear a kiss, to which the boys put Evan into Fredbear's mouth, and whenever the animatronic bites down, Evan doesn't die yet, at
Uh-oh.
least not immediately. His family rushes him to the hospital where he remains comatose for the next couple days. In the final levels of Five Nights at Freddy's 4, it's possible when looking back at the bedside to see things like a hospital IV bag or flower pot. Not only that, but the nightmares within the final nights of Five Nights at Freddy's 4 transition from being the general different animatronics from the restaurant to just nightmarish apparitions of Fredbear himself. While Evan is lying in a hospital bed, we hear Michael tell Evan that he's sorry and ask for his forgiveness, until the Fredbear plush itself begins to speak to Evan. As established earlier, this is one of William Afton's camera plushies, so it's safe to assume that this is William speaking to his son. In his final moments, we hear William say that it's going to be okay and that he's going to put Evan back together before everything fades out and Evan seemingly passes away. Now, if you're a big aficionado of the series, you may disagree with that placement in the story. However, this, as well as the events that happen directly afterwards, are
FNAF
so
4
debated,
is
and
like
there's so many different
what
options
happening
of
in
when
Evan's
this
head
happened, or
whenever
this
he's
happened before
comatose?
this, or blah blah blah.
That's
But again,
It's
as
all
the
a lot of
just a
story
people's
dream.
theory,
makes
yeah.
the most
Dream
sense to me
theory.
as the catalyst
It's
that
just all a
began everything.
dream.
Well, isn't
William, a
dream
man
theory
who wanted
just
to
that, like, the
entertain
entire
children
series
and
is a
managed to
dream?
do so for decades,
Like, not just
began
4?
his mad descent
Actually,
when
yeah,
one
I
of
think
his
you're right on
children
that one.
used one of William's own creations to kill
I think
his
so, because a
other
lot of
child.
people hate
And
dream
then in that
theory.
father's
I
desperation,
am one
he
of those
begins
people. I
experimental
hate dream
Understandable.
theory.
procedures to try to maintain the soul of a child. See, that's where the horror comes from. For those of you who may have not known anything else about the Five Nights at Freddy's games, you've probably heard it has to do with dead children possessing animatronics. And while the rules of it aren't explicitly laid clear, at least not in the video games themselves, it seems that if a child is killed by an animatronic or a piece of their body is put into that animatronic after death, that their soul possesses the animatronic itself.
Wait,
You
hold
can
on.
essentially think of it as a haunt.
Like, imagine
or
you
haunted
die
house.
and you go to
If someone
heaven,
dies in
and
a
then
derelict
someone just
mansion, then they
decides to
haunt
fuck
that
with you by
derelict
putting your
mansion.
corpse
If
in a
someone
robot,
dies and their
Oh,
body
God.
is
now
put
you're
inside
back.
of an animatronic,
Oh,
then
God.
their spirit
Yeah.
possesses that animatronic. And
At
that
least
is
you'd get to
exactly
be
what
a bear.
happens here. While we
That's
do not
true. Being a
know
bear is
the
pretty cool.
details of how or why or what happened, either because Fredbear killed Evan, or potentially afterwards, William put pieces or all of Evan's body into Fredbear, Evan's spirit possessed the Fredbear animatronic. See, now the color coding makes sense. This wasn't just a Sunday school teacher gimmick to make the letters look cool. It had a purpose, because now Evan is the spirit of Fredbear. I don't know if you can see the Fredbear good. If I turn the lights off, the reflection isn't there. So yeah, Fredbear is Evan, at least for now. I'm not sure how, perhaps just being around Fredbear and seeing signs that his child was still inside of the suit, or maybe even some kind of weird science that William applied to the suit itself whenever he made it. Either way, it seems that William figured out his son Evan was inside of the Fredbear suit. As you can
Whenever I do
imagine, not only
necromancy,
the
I
death
put
of William's
people
child,
into
but now his
animatronic
child
suits.
being trapped in a suit
I
of
go
his own
next?
invention
I see.
changed
Yeah.
William's life forever. It seems that from
Yes.
here, William wanted to better understand what
Best
had happened
Wednesday
to Evan.
ever.
So he began to modify the aforementioned Funtime animatronics with the express purpose of trapping another child so that he could figure out how the whole soul possession works. His primary contender in this being an animatronic known as
Look at the
Circus Baby.
shoes.
Circus Baby was specifically designed with a giant
Goofy
claw
ass.
inside
Little
of its
bell
chest cavity,
shoes.
as well as sensors that would always calculate and determine how many people were currently in the room. He did this with the intent of Circus Baby managing to get a child alone all by themselves so that its claw could then come out and grab the child before dragging it into its chest cavity to be killed.
She can dance. She can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream.
With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton.
This is, at least according to my timeline, the beginning of William's evil and murderous intent. It seems that the death of his own child pushed William to such extreme lengths that he was now willing to kill another kid in order to either see what happened to his son or perhaps even find a way to bring him back. During the construction of Circus Baby, William's daughter Elizabeth was in love with it, probably because it was an animatronic that looked like a young girl and had the ability to serve ice cream. On the opening day of a new Freddy Fazbear's sister location known as Circus Baby's Pizza World, Elizabeth managed to get away from her father and go see Circus Baby all by herself. The Circus Baby animatronic, calculating that Elizabeth was the only one in the room, put out a piece of ice cream to serve her before grabbing her and bringing her into her chest, to which Elizabeth was killed.
Did you know that I was on stage once? It wasn't for very long, only one day. I would always count the children. I'm not sure why. I was always acutely aware of how many there were in the room with me. There were 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. Something happened when there was 1. A little girl, standing by herself. I was no longer myself, and I stopped singing. My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least, not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment. I still hear her sometimes. Why did that happen?
We're never shown exactly
Oh,
how
that's
William
creepy.
reacted to this, although I imagine
just
this is
wanna
never what he
know,
wanted. In Five Nights at Freddy's 5,
Like, how
also known as
often did
Sister
they change
Location,
out the ice
Elizabeth
cream in
mentions many
Circus
times that
Baby?
her
Or is
father
it like a
tried to
little
keep her
rancid?
away, and she
How did you
specifically
not
went
know?
to
Good
Israel
question,
and
yeah.
go see Circus
Wait a
Baby
minute.
herself. It seems that he didn't want Circus Baby to
I'm
kill
s-
his daughter
I'm
Elizabeth.
so hung up on the
However, that's
ice cream
exactly what
thing.
happened.
Is
Despite
How did
this,
it not
however,
melt?
his plan
Like,
seemed to
if-
work, and the soul of Elizabeth began to possess the animatronic.
I don't know, maybe it's like a whole
Circus
fully
Baby.
functioning
Now,
McDonald's ice
whenever
cream machine.
Evan died, it was simply seen as an accident. While Michael and his friends caused the death of Evan, they were children as well, and it could be seen as a bullying incident gone wrong. However, when Elizabeth disappeared, that raised a lot more questions. We're told in the games that the sister location known as Circus Baby's Pizza World, again the place where Elizabeth was killed by Circus Baby, we are told that it was closed due to gas leaks. This obviously being a cover-up for this event here. However, there is no way this could have happened without Henry knowing. He was essentially the acting CEO over Fazbear's Entertainment, and there's no way that they would close down the brand new location on the first day due to gas leaks without him knowing any better. What I think happened, and this is supported by things that happened shortly after this, is that Henry found out what William was up to. Whenever William sees that Henry has created a robot whose sole purpose is to bring in children and then kill them, it probably raised a lot of red flags. We're never told this in-game, but perhaps at the same time, Henry also saw that William was trying to rebuild his son Evan, or put Evan back into the Fredbear costume,
Bro,
or
imagine
whatever
being
I
Henry
will put
and
you
your
back
business
together
partner
means.
is, like,
Either way,
putting
Henry
children
was
into
so
the
disgusted,
animatronics.
at least by
Just
what he
wanted to
saw
let
with
you know.
Circus Baby, that he kicked William out of the company. Potentially, Henry never alerted the authorities because, for one, him and William had been friends for at least 10 years, and two, William's actions has caused the death of his own daughter. So perhaps Henry saw that as punishment enough. Either way, Henry didn't alert the authorities, but he did kick William out of the business.
He
There
should've.
is a scene within
Yeah, that
the
seems
game
valid.
Five
That seems like a
Nights at
valid
Freddy's
course of
6,
action.
also known as Pizzeria Simulator. The minigame's called Midnight Motorist, and there is a part in it whenever you're playing as a little sprite that is believed to be William Afton. Again, everything in this entire series is entirely circumstantial. And while playing as William Afton, you walk up to a building called Junior's. Now, a place called Junior's is never mentioned anywhere else in the series. However, general consensus is that Junior's is the first offshoot location of Fredbear's Family Diner, which is a place known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So whenever William goes to the door of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, the worker at the front door says, "You know you can't be here, don't make this any harder than it has to be." Which means the person at the front door, either Henry or an employee of Henry, recognizes William and says, "You can't be here, don't make this worse than it has to be. A lot of people say that minigame
Can I
takes
say
place
something?
during the events of Five Nights
Yeah,
at
for
Freddy's
sure.
2.
This
However,
video is
I
making me
don't
crave
agree
pizza
due
really
to something
bad.
I'll mention in a minute. In the rest of the
Bruh.
Midnight Motorist minigame, it
You should
seems
order
that
some.
William goes
I
home,
should.
to which someone on the couch tells him, quote, "Leave him alone, he's had a rough day." Before William goes to someone's room, yells at them to let him in, before he walks outside and sees that whoever was in the room broke the window and went to, quote, "that place again." Now, this is all speculation because most of the stuff in this series is speculation. What are you going to do? It seems to me like this person sitting on the couch is probably William's wife, and although she's never seen in the series again, that's the only character that can make sense here. And the child that he is berating is his only surviving child, Michael. Michael is now terrified by his father and remorseful for the actions that he himself committed that led to the death of Evan. Perhaps whenever William says that Michael is going to that place again, he's referencing Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria because maybe Michael's trying to figure out what happened to his sister. Like I said, that was speculation, but it makes the most sense to me. The core takeaway from it is that William is now being kicked out of the locations that he helped create by his business partner, Henry. And while Henry was in his right to do so, I mean, he found William with a child scooping animatronic that he built. Like, you can't let that guy keep working around children. Henry becomes paranoid of the idea.
No, I
that
think you
William
can.
will
I think
try
it's
to
fine.
retaliate. During this time, William makes a new animatronic. An animatronic known as the marionette or just the puppet. This puppet is designed for the express purpose of protecting Henry's daughter Charlotte, also known as Charlie. One day William, perhaps in the midst of a rage towards his business partner Henry, William decides that he is going to take from Henry what William had accidentally taken from himself. Again, as we can see from many games placed throughout the video game series, one day Charlie is locked outside, to which William Afton pulls up in his vehicle, kills the young child, before driving away and leaving her body in an alley. Now, normally, the marionette puppet would have stopped this from happening, as its entire purpose is to follow Charlie around and protect her.
Uh-oh.
However, during this event, it seems that the puppet was trapped and unable to get to Charlie until it was too late. Eventually, the puppet works its way outside in order to find the young girl, to which whenever the puppet gets there, the deed has already been done. The puppet, unable to do anything else, lies down next to Charlie, to which it seems through whatever supernatural means is filled throughout this narrative, the spirit of Charlie possesses the puppet. Perhaps William killed Charlie outside that day because it was just a moment of opportunity, or perhaps he did it away from the animatronics because at this point 2 of his own children had been killed in the proximity of an animatronic and their soul had been taken into it. And perhaps William killed Charlie outside in order to prevent her from possessing an animatronic. However, despite his efforts, as noted here, the spirit of Charlie now possesses the marionette puppet. I like the idea of Charlie being the first murder victim of William, not only because it matches the story more and it makes the first intentional kill more purposeful, but in the events that follow, the animatronics are only possessed because the puppet attaches that spirit to each animatronic. So in order for any of the victims to possess future animatronics, the puppet has to be dead first. Not only that, but a line that Henry says in Pizzeria Simulator heavily implies that his child was the first victim of William's killing spree.
Not until I undo what he has done and heal
I just
this
want to
wound.
know why
A wound
Henry was
first
like,
inflicted on me, but then one that I let bleed
children
out to
have
cause
been
all of
killed
this.
by
So due to Charlie's
animatronics.
death,
You know what
the
I'm going to
restaurant
build
is
to
shut
protect
down.
my
A
own
couple years
child?
later,
An
it
animatronic.
reopens as the
A
new
big,
and
scary
improved
animatronic.
Why the
Freddy
fuck
Fazbear's
wouldn't you
Pizza.
just like
I think it is
Logic.
shortly after
hire a
the reopening
security
of Freddy
guard or
Fazbear's
something?
Pizza
I don't
that the
know.
missing children's incident occurs. For those that don't know, there is a mention in the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, and at the time this was the only lore for the overall series that we ever got, in which a newspaper clipping says that 5 children went missing at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, and that's the reason it got shut down. That Freddy Fazbear's Pizza that got shut down because 5 children went missing is the current pizza place that I'm talking about in the timeline. And I'll pull the timeline back up in a second to look at, but I want to add the final names to this board first. But in short, we have the original Fredbear's Family Diner, and then we have some restaurants like Circus Baby's Pizza World that open and get closed, and maybe some other projects that we're not told about in the series. But after Fredbear's, we get Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Charlie is killed outside of it, so it is shut down and now reopened. It is shortly after this reopening, I think the missing children's incident occurs, and here's why. Whenever you are playing as the security guard, a man by the name of Jeremy Fitzgerald in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, phone guy, or the guy who is giving you the instructional messages over the phone, says that you are at the new reopened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Hello and welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
And over the course of that week, he says that an investigation is taking place.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. I don't know.
Now we know that the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, that week that you're playing as the security guard, take place in 1987. Most people say that the missing children's incident happened before the old restaurant was ever shut down, or in other words, around the same time that Charlie was killed. However, that wouldn't make sense if it's a current ongoing investigation. Think about it. If the children disappeared in 1985 and all that time had passed, why would the investigation
Domino's
now just
website
be
right now.
started in 1987? We know that the investigation is not over the fight of 87 because that happened at the end of the work week. Also, to make sure everyone's still in the loop, in the original Five Nights at Freddy's game, which takes place after the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2, I know there's prequels and sequels all over the place, the phone guy in the first game mentions that the old location, the location from Five Nights at Freddy's 2, was shut down due to something known as the Bite of 87, in which an animatronic bit out someone's
The Bite of 87?
They used to be allowed to walk around during the day, too.
Oh, it's the Markiplier from the Bite of 87.
Yeah. It's amazing that the human body can live without the frontal lobe, you know?
So
It's
a lot
true,
of
I've been
people
doing
say,
it
oh, well, the
for,
investigation that's happening
as
over
long
the
as
course
I've
of
been
Five Nights at
alive.
Freddy's 2 is the Bite of 87. But like I said, that happens to Jeremy Fitzgerald, the security guard you play as in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, at the
That
end
was
of the
my
work
nickname
week.
in high
So
school.
what is the investigation happening over the
The
course
Bite of
of the
87?
week itself?
Jeremy
well,
Fitzgerald.
on the fourth night in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the phone
Why?
guy says there is an investigation
people
What's the
call me.
happening.
story?
On the fifth night, he says that the business is on lockdown. And then finally, on the sixth night, he says that you're not even supposed to be here. Someone used one of the yellow suits in the back, and now none of the animatronics are acting right.
Okay, so just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days. I don't know. Hey, keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees. What on earth are you doing there? Didn't you get the memo? The place is closed down, at least for a while. Someone used one of the suits. We had a spare in the back, a yellow one. Someone used it. Now none of them are acting right.
We find out in later installments that what had happened during this time is William Afton donned his spring Bonnie or golden bunny suit that he used to wear back at Fredbear's before luring children into the back room and killing them one by one.
The back
We don't know
rooms?
William's motives for doing this. Perhaps he was doing it to try to experiment on the same conditions that caused two of his children to possess animatronics, or perhaps it was just an evil
Hold on, I
bloodlust
gotta
that
bounce
set
for a
in
moment.
after
Sorry,
the now
guys.
death of three
Oh.
children
Yeah,
in his life.
How long is the moment? Should I pause?
No, don't pause. I'll see if I can come back. But I need to hop out for a quick moment, okay?
Yeah, you're good.
One of
Thank
them
you.
directly
Bye.
murdered by
This is-
him. Either way, 5 children were killed, and it seems that in order to cover his tracks, William stuffed their bodies inside of the animatronics in the building itself. I believe that this missing children's incident, or in other words, the murder of 5 children, occurred immediately before Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and that is the investigation Phone Guy's referring to which at the end of the week he says someone wore one of the yellow suits and now none of the animatronics are acting right. It's even mentioned at this Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that they trashed the old animatronics and got brand new ones in, known as the toy animatronics. And those old ones seem to be a perfect place to store the bodies of his victims. Remember earlier how I said the Midnight Motorist minigame is believed by most to occur during Five Nights at Freddy's 2? And the reason William isn't allowed back into the building is because he would have just murdered 5 children? Well, the reason I don't think that's the case is because if you go all the way back to the first game, and again, read the newspaper clipping about the missing children's incident, it says that the suspect who wore the costume has been identified and apprehended. Of course, he was never convicted because they couldn't find the bodies. I don't know why they never checked the reeking animatronics, but that's besides the point. So if Midnight Motorist takes place during the investigation of the children that William had murdered, which, keep in mind, during the course of Five Nights at Freddy's 2 all happened in the span of about a week, there is no way William would have got to the pizza restaurant and been turned away because he currently would have been in police custody. And also, I know this is being like super hypercritical of specific story moments, which doesn't always work, but I still think it's kind of weird. If William had just murdered 5 children, and this isn't like debatable if he murdered 5 children, this is he was identified and arrested and they just can't find the bodies to convict him. But it's known by everyone around that William killed those kids. I think him, when he's supposed to be in police custody, coming to the door of the restaurant and then the bouncer being like, hey, you shouldn't be around here. Doesn't that seem like a very like low power push off to a guy who just murdered 5 kids in your restaurant? That sounds much more like William was doing some shady stuff and accidentally killed his own daughter and got kicked out. Not he murdered 5 kids like last week. And again, he should be at police custody at this point. Midnight Motorist happens before the death of Charlie, not during Five Nights at Freddy's 2. You can fight me about it. We find out these names from a point later in the series, but the 5 children who were killed by William Afton during the incident were Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, Jeremy, and Cassidy. And those children were placed into the bodies and subsequently possessed Freddy, Foxy, Chica, Bonnie, and Fredbear, respectively. Now, it's not known
Evan was in
if
Fredbear.
William put the bodies into the animatronics,
I think he gets to that.
indicated in the puppet mini-games throughout the series.
Weird.
That the puppet, now being possessed by Charlie, went through and attached each of those children to the animatronics themselves. Or more specifically, we know that the puppet was responsible for giving life to these kids. We don't know if that means some more spiritual or metaphorical action, or if the puppet took the murder victims and placed them inside of the animatronics. Either way, the bodies couldn't be found because the bodies of the children were inside of the animatronics themselves.
Wouldn't
Again,
those
we don't
start
know if
to
the puppet or William
smell,
did
though?
that. Like I said, according to my
you'd think
timeline,
so.
this happens immediately before the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 2.
Wouldn't the
So the
animatronics
reason that the
smell like rotting
animatronics are
flesh?
trying to kill the security
they
guard
would.
Jeremy Fitzgerald in
correct.
that game is because
Okay.
5 of them are possessed
I
by
don't
the
know.
spirits of children murdered by William Afton. As we see in several of the flashback minigames, William Afton is depicted as a purple figure.
Aw, shit, White
as a
Oracle.
purple guy
Oh, the
wearing
man
a
behind the
security
slaughter!
badge. So it's more than likely that
It's
William
me!
gained access to the restaurant
It's
and
you.
was able to
You're in
kill
the
these
video
kids
game.
and don the
I don't know, maybe you can tell us then.
suit
Did you do some like
because he pretended to
necromantic
be a
magic to make
security
them
guard and
not
wore the
smell?
purple security
Yeah.
guard vest. This would explain why 5 children who have recently been killed try to kill the first person they see wearing a purple security uniform. The phone guy phone calls that I've mentioned are pretty much the only way that the character gets any world or lore relevance for the first couple games. At the end of the Night 6 phone call, phone guy tells Jeremy, again the security guard that you're playing as, that he has one job left to do before the restaurant closes down for a while. That job is he has to watch over a children's birthday party the next day and make sure he wears his purple security uniform and stand very close to the animatronics.
We have one more event scheduled for tomorrow, a birthday. You'll be on day
Right,
shift. Wear your uniform. stay close to the animatronics and make sure they don't hurt anyone.
This causes the event on the final day of the restaurant's opening, known as the Bite of 87.
The Bite of
There it is.
87!
One of the animatronics bites
thing.
Jeremy Fitzgerald, ripping out his frontal lobe. This, as you can imagine, was very bad PR for the company, and Freddy Fazbear's Pizza shut down at the time for good. And then on the 7th night, the final night that the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is opened, a new security guard comes in to work only one night by the name of Fritz Smith. Fritz is never mentioned anywhere else in the timeline, although it's weird that in a restaurant where people are actively dying due to the animatronics, some random guy would come in to work one night. For reasons I'm going to explain later, I believe Fritz Smith is an alias for Michael Afton, who is now out and trying to find answers to his father's wrongdoings. The last thing I want to mention before I put the timeline back up is that if you'll notice here, Cassidy is said to
here we
possess
go.
Fredbear.
Oh, shit.
But if
Okay.
you'll also look up here, Evan is also possessing Fredbear. All the animatronics in the series that have been possessed can move around on their own free will except for Fredbear. The primary belief for this is, if you'll remember, the Fredbear costume is both a costume and an animatronic. So if you were to have it set on costume mode and just laying in a corner and someone's to possess that, they can't move and are essentially stuck inside of a decrepit mascot uniform. Whereas all these other ones who are possessed are functioning animatronics and are able to move about on their own free will. In the Five Nights at Freddy's survival logbook, yes, that's a real phrase I just said out loud. Without going into all the specifics, it seems that there is a conversation taking place between two hidden authors on the pages themselves. For example, there will be faded text asking, "Do you remember your name?" and then responses written in the text elsewhere in the book. It's two people having a conversation with each other, and without going into the nitty-gritty of how this was determined, because again, it was a lot. By the way, I didn't mention this enough earlier. Big shout out to Game Theory, also known as MatPat. Like, I understand he has also done the thing I mentioned where people get hyper-focused on the details and forget the story, but none of this would be possible without the amount of work and research that guy and his community has done to figure out all of this information, to the point where a lot of the flippant facts that I'm giving you wouldn't be known.
Yeah, when
if it
Kora
wasn't
gets
for
back,
his
you have to
videos.
replay this
So,
part.
gotta respect your forerunners that came before you.
I want to live in a universe
But
where
due to work mostly
MatPat is
done
the
by
name of the
him,
channel
it
and
is
Game Theory
determined
is
that there
his
are two
government
souls
name.
possessing the Fredbear animatronic. These
I
two
think that would
souls
be
being
better.
Cassidy and Evan, as mentioned earlier. And also, they can't move. They're just stuck in a suit talking to each other. So that's, pretty sad.
Oh,
All
so
right, so
there's
just to
two
recap
people
everyone to
in the
make sure we're
Fredbear
on the
suit.
same page.
Yeah, they're just like
1970,
chilling at the
William and
structure.
Henry start
I see.
Fredbear's Family Diner. In the 80s, the business expands into several restaurants and more of a corporate entity. In 1983 is when the events of FNAF 4 happened, where Michael kills Evan using the mouth of the Fredbear animatronic, and all of the nightmares that Evan have take place during that time. Because of this, William builds the Circus Baby animatronic with the intention to kill and kidnap a child. And I say both in 1983, they were probably in the same year, maybe 1984, whatever. So in 1983, Circus Baby kills Elizabeth. And shortly after that, the events of Midnight Motorist take place, where Henry kicks William out of the business. This causes William to get angry and Henry to get paranoid, so Henry builds the puppet to protect Charlie, or Charlotte as I have said here, to which William then kills Charlie, and the puppet is possessed by the spirit of Charlie. Because of that, Fredbear and Friends shuts down, and it's later reopened probably around 1985, sometime between 85 and 87.
Could you consider maybe
and it's
not making
reopened and
animatronics
rebranded
designed
as
to
Freddy
kidnap
Fazbear's
children? I
Pizza.
feel like that
New
would have avoided
animatronics are brought
everything
in to
here.
take the place
This-
of the old ones.
So Five
This
Nights
is
at
around the
Freddy's
same time that
reminds
the
me a
missing
lot of
children's
Jurassic Park,
incident
where
occurs
it's like,
right
it
before
was
Five Nights at
so
Freddy's 2.
catastrophic the first
So
time.
the bodies
Why do you
of
keep
the
doing
children
it?
from the missing children incident,
Yeah.
by William or the puppet,
How are they
are
allowed to
stuffed
keep doing it?
into
How has
the old
OSHA not stepped
animatronics,
in and been
which
like,
leads
no?
directly into the events of Five
I
Nights
don't
at
know.
Freddy's 2. At the end
But
of
it's
that
like,
week, the Bite of 87 occurs, which is
why
when
do you
during the day
keep
shift, one of the
building things?
animatronics bites Jeremy.
When-
It's
when
not
you-
even
you
like
can just stop.
Technically
You can
not
just
killing
stop.
him because it's
it's not
mentioned
even
Five
that
Nights
so
at Freddy's
long
1
between them that
someone
people
can
have
live
forgotten.
without
Like
a
the
front
first one
alone,
maybe it's
but
like,
that doesn't
oh, a
mean he
spooky
lived
urban
well
legend,
or
this
for very long
kid went
afterwards.
missing. Oh
I
no.
have
But like
Springlock
after 5
failures
go
mentioned
missing
here.
and it's like
That
public
doesn't mean
knowledge in
directly
87 that happened in
1987.
that store.
Whenever we get to
They
Five
opened
Nights at
another
Freddy's
one in like
3, there's a
95.
mention on one
Dude.
of the recorded tapes
Like people remember.
that one
Nobody
of the
would go
restaurants
there.
was shut down for having several spring lock failures.
Actually, that's a lie. I would go there. It would be goofy.
Location involving multiple and simultaneous spring lock failures. The company has deemed the suit temporarily unfit for employees.
And then
Also,
finally,
the spring
on
lock
the
suits
final
definitely
night
would not have
that
passed
the
any
original Freddy
inspection
Fazbear's
ever.
Pizza is opened,
No,
Michael
absolutely
comes
not.
to work as the
Even
night
in
guard
83.
on night 7 under the alias of Fritz Smith before he is fired when the place is shut down. You good? Did that all make sense? We good? Good, because now I'm on to the first game. No, I'm not kidding. We're now ready to talk about the original Five Nights at Freddy's. Do you see why this is so confusing? People give creators like MatPat and stuff a hard time for this, but like if you were in it whenever this was happening, you had to just totally guess about everything I just said because we got rough hints and newspaper clippings as to what happened. Like, yeah, a lot of the theories got kind of ridiculous and out there, but man, there was so much we were filling in the gaps for. So now we are finally to the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 1 occurring in 1993. In it, a security guard
God,
by
I
the
love
name
FNAF
of Mike
lore.
Schmidt gets a night job at the reopened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. So last time, I'll go through the restaurants. At
The
least for
Bite
now.
of 87
We had
happened.
Fazbear's Family
And
Diner,
6
which
years
is the one
later,
where
they're
Evan
like,
got his head chopped, and then
we're
that shut
doing it
down.
again.
We had Fredbear and Friends, which is the
Yeah,
one where
like,
Charlie was murdered
that
outside
would be
of, and
illegal.
that got shut down. We then
That
had Freddy
wouldn't
Fazbear's
happen.
Pizza open, which is where
When
5
you
children
attempted
were
to
murdered, and where
purchase or
security
rent the
guard had the
building
front part of
where you're
his
going to
brain
open the
taken out, and that
establishment,
was shut down.
the
And now
local zoning
finally, we
authority
have
would have been
Freddy
like,
Fazbear's
you
Pizza
can't do that.
Opening and Michael working as the security guard. The reason I'm so confident in saying that Michael is Mike Schmidt is because, for one, Mike's name is Mike, and also in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 and Five Nights at Freddy's 1, whenever Fritz and Mike are fired, on the pink fire slip, it says that they were fired due to odor. While this probably started out as
Can't
just
believe
a
Michael
joke
Hefton
in the
was a
first
Smash
one,
player.
I think it is enough of a clue in to tell us that this is the same person. And also, it makes the most sense for a storyline. Because if these guys aren't Michael, then in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, some random guy showed up for one night to fight for his life against animatronics and then never showed up again. And then at Five Nights at Freddy's 1, you have a guy who is almost being murdered by animatronics every night he's working there, but then comes back to work the next day. It only
Someone
makes sense
probably
to
like
me
let
if
him
this
cook
is
when they
Michael
suggested
who
to
is
do it
braving
again.
these
Bro,
horrors
somebody's
in
like, no,
order
no,
to
let
try
William have
to
to let him
right his
cook, let him
father's
cook.
wrongs
He's
or
been
to
cooking
figure
for
out
too
what
long.
happened to his father. It's like
He's been
Chekhov's gun.
cooking
It would be
for
completely
years, and it's
pointless
never
to
turned out
introduce
well.
two
Maybe
characters
maybe
who never
make
show up
him
again
stop
and
cooking.
have no other plot relevance when you can have one character fill both of those roles and make the story more meaningful. Anyway, it's mentioned by Phone Guy in the original Five Nights at Freddy's that they took the animatronics from the FNAF 2 location, the old decrepit ones, and gave them a remodel, and those are now the animatronics they're using on stage. So, in other words, the animatronics that are possessed by the dead children just got a remodel, and now they're back on stage again. And once again, the reason they are trying to kill you, the player, which is also you, Michael Afton, is because you're dressed in the security uniform of the man that killed them. And probably, since it's Michael, also looks a little bit like him too. I also didn't mention this earlier. There's a lot of people who say William's real tally is like 10 children that he murdered. However, that doesn't show up anywhere in the story, and the main reason they say that is so all of the animatronics that try to attack you in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the toy animatronics and the old ones, are all possessed, so that would make sense. However, it's mentioned by the Phone Guy in Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that the toy animatronics have a facial recognition system that is connected to a criminal database so that they will be able to alert anyone or know if there's any predators among the children. At least that's what Phone Guy says, who's to say they can't also attack people linked to that database. And since the puppet was there at Five Nights at Freddy's 2, remember the one that started all of this, and we know that the puppet can manipulate animatronics, at the very least Charlie put the bodies of the children into the old animatronics so that they'd be possessed. What's to say the puppet didn't change the facial recognition so that they would just kill anyone in a security guard uniform? Again, that would
They really
also
invented
explain the might of
ChatGPT
87.
in
And, like, especially when you see where the story
1983.
goes from here,
Kinda
and
fucked.
very specifically where the story ends, it doesn't make any sense if there's, like, another 5 children whose souls are just out there somewhere. It makes a lot more sense if the only children Michael killed were Charlie, and then the 5 children at the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 location. Also, everyone wants to say in like all the theories I looked at that William killed a bunch of kids down here, I guess because he was in like a silly, goofy mood. Because everyone tries their hardest, and I'm not talking about anyone specifically, this is just like the general air from the community.
He was
Wake
in a
up
silly
and you're
goofy
like,
mood.
So hard to
Feeling a
make
little
the
bit
story
goofy
as
today.
one-dimensional as possible and just say,
A little
William,
wacky.
bad, he killed kids here, he killed kids again, and that's it. And while yes, William bad, it is William reason for bad that I think is interesting, and the reason that this story's always intrigued me. His son was killed by his other son using an invention of his own
window's
making,
open
and
and it's
then
picking
he
up
lost
church
his
bells.
mind trying to figure out how his son's soul could be preserved that led to the death of his daughter, and then everything after.
The church heard us talking
The
about
story
being
becomes
silly,
much more
goofy, and
interesting
they wanted to
when
bring
you
us
view
back
this
to the
as
light.
humans with
I know the
motives
church knows
Before
what we're
we
talking about
insert
FNAF.
generic
Become a
bad
man
guy,
behind the slaughter.
killed child onto scene 2. Anyway, so the events
they
of Five
find out
Nights at
I'm the
Freddy's
man
1
behind
takes
the
place
slaughter, they're
in which
going
you
to
can
tell
see
the
the 4
church.
animatronics, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and Freddy coming to kill you, as well as apparitions of Fredbear, known to
scarlet
most
letter,
of
but
the
it's the
community
purple
as
letter.
Golden Freddy.
The
Whenever
Orpal
you
letter.
take into account that Evan
The
could be the
Orpal
spirit
letter.
inside of Fredbear,
Velvet.
it becomes much more impactful whenever
It's an M for
Fredbear
man
says,
behind the
"It's
slaughter."
me," to Michael Afton. Because that is Michael's
no, it'd still be
younger
A for
brother
Afton.
who he killed, pointing out to him,
Oh,
"It's
shit.
me," over
A
and
for
over
Afton.
again
Oh,
before
shit,
killing
dude.
him in his office. At least, if you lose the game. But during this entire time, William is released by the police. Again, they have the camera footage of him being the last one seen with the children, but they can't find the bodies and can't pin anything on him. So shortly
Nobody,
after
no
the
crime,
events of the
huh?
first Five Nights at Freddy's, William goes to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in order to cover up his
Oh yeah,
evidence.
also I
This is
pushed
the
my
flashback
Dragon Guard
games
back
that
because
we
I didn't want to
see
leave
in
you
Five
alone.
Nights at
Kora
Freddy's
is
3,
not
where
returning.
William goes into the restaurant
did
and
he say-
begins
did she say she's not
disassembling
returning?
the animatronics.
Yeah.
Now we find
Okay.
out later in Sister Location that
Sorry
he
for
took
those of you
pieces
that
of
were here
those
for Kora.
animatronics
She
and
had to
then
go.
rebuilt them into the framework
You're stuck
of
with
the
us
Funtime
now.
animatronics. If you'll remember, Circus Baby
Thanks for
was
pushing
one
your
of
Dragon
those,
Guard.
which was this private
Yeah, I got you. I
collection.
didn't want to leave you
And
alone to
now
deal
he
with
is
this.
disassembling
I could have
the
been alone, but that's very
animatronics
sweet of
that
you.
are possessed by the spirits of the children he
You're a real
killed
one.
and reassembling them into these animatronics of his own creation. We know that this has to take place after Five Nights at Freddy's 1 because in those flashbacks he completely destroys the original 4 animatronics. And before the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 5, also known as Sister Location. Because in Sister Location, all of the old animatronics have been reassembled by William into these new Funtime animatronics. And based on how these flashbacks end, there's no way he could have done that after the flashbacks. It had to be during. Because at the end of this minigame, we see the souls come out of the animatronics that William had been disassembling.
I always
and
loved this
attack William
animation.
himself.
He looks so silly.
In the ruins of the derelict Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, William becomes frightened and decides to hide inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. However, if you'll remember, these suits are designed so that the animatronic components can be twisted to the sides
Why?
in order to make room for someone to step in.
Why
the
is bro
costume.
tweaking
However,
so
there
bad?
is a mention in
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm
series
saying.
that if these suits get old or wet, there is a chance of a spring lock failure. Or in other words, the animatronic components shooting back into place while someone is still wearing it. So as William puts on the old suit in order to shield himself from the children,
Fucking run cycle. Yeah, that happened to my buddy Eric.
he is killed by a spring lock failure. And as the spirits of the children he murdered slip away, William bleeds to death in the now abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I don't want to take the timeline back down, and I don't even know how much of this you can see whenever I hang it up.
I was going to say,
but as you can see here, I have William
born.
listed on the bottom as Springtrap. Springtrap is the name that people give Spring Bonnie after William possesses the suit, because the rules still apply. If you die inside of a suit or your body's inside of it, you are now the possessed soul who is controlling that suit. So William now exists as
I still can't get over the fact that that's the only requirement. Like, you could really play a silly prank on someone. They've been dead for years, and they're like, "Ah, hell yeah, I get to kick it in heaven with GZC," and then you put their body in an animatronic, and well, now they're back. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing to.
I think we should do it to Xander.
Yeah, let's do it to Xander. Nobody tell him, chat.
Don't tell Xander that we're gonna put him in an
someone most definitely.
Yeah, it'll ruin the prank.
Henry. So around 1995, William is entombed in the back room of an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, now possessing the suit.
Digging up the bones of Christ to pull an even sillier prank at Fazbear's Pizza.
Five Nights at Freddy's 5 takes place. The reason it has to happen here.
What's up?
I'm sorry, I read digging up the bones of Christ to pull an even sillier prank at Fazbear's.
Wouldn't that cause the rapture, technically, following the Christian lore?
It would literally cause the fucking rapture if you put the bones of Christ in an animatronic. It would literally be the second coming of Christ.
Oh my god.
You would literally fucking cause the second coming of Jesus Christ if you put
so
the bones
of
Christ into an animatronic at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Holy shit.
I hope that's the plot of the movie.
Holy shit. How does it feel to be the funniest person on the fucking internet? I feel like I need to quit my job. Like, I will literally never be that funny. I need to stop VTubing immediately. Like, this is it. Like, I will never be that funny. Fuck. I need to get off the internet. Like, shit. I am worthless. I will never say anything sillier or goofier in my entire little court jester career. Like, oh my god.
I can't believe we just solved FNAF lore with that one. That's what Security Breach was. That was the rapture. Also, yeah, Stick, I'm gonna need you to tone it down because I'm the funniest VTuber. This can't happen.
Oh my god.
That's actually so fucking funny.
So fucking funny. Oh my god. Okay, I'll start the video again. But just putting the bones of Christ to pull a silly prank at Fazbear's Pizza? Imagine you cause the fucking rapture by putting the remains of Jesus Christ in an animatronic.
It'd be even funnier if you didn't know it was, and then Freddy starts moving.
It'd be even
And
funnier if you put him inside
some
the
like
Fred...
be not afraid shit.
It would be even funnier if he was like inside the Fredbear suit, because Evan's already in there, and so is that other girl. So now there's 3 people inside of one Freddy. It's 3 people and one Freddy. Like 3 people and one God. Like it's like the Holy Trinity.
Yeah, there it is. The Father and the Holy Spirit. They're in there.
Oh, shit.
That's fucked up.
Oh my god. I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna cry. Oh my god. Okay.
I cannot believe that shit.
Fuck. Okay.
Here is because William dies, or at least stops living and starts possessing a suit that has his decomposing corpse in it at the end of these Five Nights at Freddy's 3 minigames. So he couldn't have put the spirits of the dead children or components of their suits into the Funtime animatronics after that happened. And because we see him taking apart the animatronics in those minigames, I'm going to say that he disassembled them and then reassembled them into the Funtime animatronics at the same time. So shortly after William dies and gets walled up into a back room in a Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, Michael decides to go figure out more about what his father was doing. It's there that Michael goes to an underground storage facility that is specifically made for the Fazbear Entertainment rental animatronics. The animatronics that are found down there are the Funtime animatronics themselves, including Circus Baby, which at the time is being possessed by Michael's younger sister, Elizabeth. This is where we get a lot of the information that indicates how Elizabeth died, how the Funtime animatronics were made, and stuff I've already mentioned. So, to very briefly describe the events that happened in Sister Location, the Funtime animatronics are essentially trapped in this.
How does Bro afford an entire underground facility like this, by the way? Or like any of this, for that matter?
Tricks Michael into helping them escape. The way Circus Baby ends up doing this is by bringing Michael to something known as a scooping room, which is where a giant machine is located that pulls out the endoskeleton of animatronics and leaves just the skin present. And this is like, I know we're talking about a series that has to do with children possessing animatronics and then like devices made to like scoop children into them and all that. But this is the most outlandish detail of the story to me, because I can accept all the possessed, haunting child stuff. It's the biology, anatomy, survival rates that I have a problem with. So it seems that the scooping machine scoops Michael, or at least rips a chunk of him out, and then pieces from all of the Funtime animatronics.
Boomers will see a millennial finally afford a house and be like, they can't even afford an underground facility.
All of the Funtime animatronics together in one collective mass.
Boomers will see a millennial trying to buy a house and like, they can't even afford a scooping room.
To Michael somehow. I guess they say that the scoop.
God, I wish I had a scooping room.
And then Innard crawled into his gut.
Hold on, that gave me a shit post idea.
Innard, effectively wearing Michael as a skin suit, wears Michael around until his body can't take it, and then Innard leaves. Now, I know there's explanations in the books that have to do with, oh, well, there's this substance that can keep a spirit alive, and it's called remnant, and there's all this weird voodoo stuff. They tried to make possession and all that into a science, like something tangible, and I think that's pretty lame, and it's also not in the video game, so I choose to ignore it. But the short version is all the animatronics
this is the scene.
To Innard. A chunk of Michael is ripped out. Innard goes inside of that until Michael's body.
There he is, Whitey Oracle.
And Innard leaves, but Michael still survives. So effectively, all of the animatronics are now free and roaming around to do whatever they want to do. This is mentioned in the later games, but shortly after Innard escaped from Michael, because remember, Innard's now a collective consciousness of all of the Funtime animatronics. They kicked out Elizabeth, which is Circus Baby at the time, for some reason. I don't believe it's ever particularly said. Someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong.
Yeah, that tracks.
I think it may be because Elizabeth is the daughter of William Afton, the one that killed all of them, so they're not particularly fond of that. Either way, Elizabeth, aka Circus Baby, reassembles her original form out of scrap metal and becomes a kind of junk version of herself known as Scrap Baby. Innard, which again is the collective consciousness of all of the children murdered by William except for the puppet Charlie, we'll get to her in a minute, decides that the best way to continue survival is to scavenge parts and try to appear as a normal animatronic, or at least a sustainable one. So they do, and Innard converts itself into a creature known as Molten Freddy. And then if you'll look at the timeline, there is a 30-year gap in time. Like, the events of Sister Location probably happened somewhere around 1995, and then nothing happens until 2023. I don't know of any stories in the series that say they killed anyone during this time period. But having like
FNAF
a collective conscious
in 2023 here
of murdered children roaming around the sewers
it's about to happen in real life.
Probably a bad thing. And it becomes an especially bad thing whenever in 2023 when the events of Five Nights at Freddy's 3 happens. See, by the year 2023, everything that happened on this side had become a local folk legend. It became a big story of, oh, here's the abandoned pizza place where all those children were murdered. So they took an abandoned Freddy Fazbear's Pizza and remade it into a spooky horror attraction known as Fazbear Frights, where at the attraction they get a bunch of old Fazbear Entertainment merchandise and hang it up everywhere in order to give the whole creepy abandoned pizzeria vibe. This is all well and good.
Don't you just love
until
whenever
the phone
people
guy
turn a local
says
tragedy
that
into
they recovered
an attraction?
a full animatronic that was locked up in one of the walls.
Alright, I made this shit post.
And they put like the murder weapons on display and everything for like a silly goofy time.
We found one. A real one.
And sure enough, that animatronic they found was William Afton, still alive and possessing the animatronic that is carrying his own corpse that for the past 30 years has been stuck in a walled-off room. So the people at Fazbear Frights think this is a great find and decide to set it up as part of the attraction, and that's where bad things happen. Michael gets the security position at Fazbear Frights, again trying to figure out what's going on. Keep in mind, 30 years have passed too.
Isn't Michael
so
dead?
He's
he got scooped.
A man who's determined to figure out what his dad did.
Father, it's me, Michael. I should be dead, but I'm not.
Why is he British?
I've been living in shadows.
Oh yeah, the Aftons are British. I don't think we know why.
Thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you.
If it's in 2023, then it's realistically accurate that someone would have said, let them cook when the idea for an attraction came up.
And throughout the course of Five Nights at Freddy's 3,
that animation is so goofy.
Of what happened
he just fucking like bounces in.
To possess the Springtrap animatronic, yada yada. Until on the final night of this Fazbear Frights location, it seems that Michael tries to burn down the building with his father in it. However, it doesn't work, and William manages to get free after 30 years of being locked up. So now, by the year 2023, we have William, who is running around as the animatronic Springtrap.
Is FNAF?
We have Molten Freddy, which
the one
is
whenever
the
he like
collective
sets everything on fire.
Is
that where the TikTok sound is like,
Michael,
Michael, don't leave me here?
We have Charlie as the puppet, also running around.
I don't know. I think it might be from Custom Night.
And we have Circus Baby, who was kicked out of Molten Freddy and is now existing
she got
as
scissor
her own
hands.
animatronic. So this is probably bad, having all of them run around doing their own thing, especially now that William's free to do whatever he wants. And it seems that Henry, who at this point has been quiet for a pretty good while in the story, has decided that he's going to do something about it. So Henry opens up a brand new restaurant, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, opening a restaurant under a title that up until this point, as seen by Fazbear Frights, has some pretty bad blood attached to it. However, Henry doesn't care, and it seems he's just starting another pizza restaurant, to which Michael
this one
is
makes
immediately
sense.
hired as security guard. As soon as the restaurant is opened, old animatronics start to show up in the back alley of the restaurant.
There is another aspect to your end-of-day routine, and that is inspecting and salvaging any animatronics found in the alley outside the back door. Things are found here quite often, and while we aren't sure why, what we do know is that they can be used for parts, which can mean a much-needed revenue boost before starting your next day.
These animatronics include Circus Baby, Molten Freddy, and Springtrap, who at the time to all the other workers just seemed to be old decrepit animatronics that it seems somebody threw out or left behind the restaurant in case the restaurant wanted them. As the player, you have the choice in this game, which we're now to Five Nights at Freddy's 6, by the way, of what animatronics you want to bring into the restaurant and put in storage, and which ones you want to throw back outside. While you may have the ability to do what you want, in order to get the correct or full ending of the story, you have to bring all of the animatronics into the building. The game also heavily suggests to you that the purpose of what you're doing is to salvage all the animatronics.
I don't know how those tiny breaths of life came to inhabit those machines, but they will never find rest now, not like this. I have to call them all back, all of them, together in one place.
It seems that the animatronics are interested in whatever it is Henry's doing and have each made their way to the pizzeria one by one. Henry created the pizzeria as essentially bait in order to lure all of them back in. That is, except for one animatronic that Henry knew would not be interested in falling into a trap, and that is the puppet, which is possessed by his own daughter, Charlie. To take care of her, Henry built an animatronic known as Lefty, an animatronic built with the sole purpose of catching the puppet animatronic. Again, if you didn't know about all this story or everything happening before, that's like a really weird detail in the later games. But again, here it makes sense because he's trying to get all the animatronics under one roof, and he knew that the puppet would probably be resistant to it, so he made an animatronic specifically to catch her. And then on the final night of the pizzeria, as Michael is being attacked by the animatronics, Circus Baby begins to tell Michael of how she's going to kill him.
You played right into our hands. Did you really think that this job just fell out of the sky for you? No. This was a gift for us. You gathered them all together in one place, just like he asked you to. All of those little souls in one place, just for us. A gift. Now we can do what we were created to do, and be complete. I will make you proud, Daddy. Watch, listen, and be full.
Before she is cut off by Henry, now making his presence known. And you know what?
She's like,
rather than describing what happens
was all
next,
for us. We've won,
I'll just let
dude.
you hear for
and then
yourselves.
Yep.
Why would she think that Henry's on their side?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth. If you still even remember that name. But I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called.
Oh wait, I forgot. He like tricked them
Into a labyrinth
into
of
thinking it was
sounds and
Afton.
smells, misdirection, and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber, always seeming so near, yet somehow out of reach. But you will never find them. None of you will. This is where your story ends. And to you, my brave volunteer, who somehow found this job listing not intended for you. Although there was a way out planned for you, I have a feeling that's not what you want. I have a feeling that you are right where you want to be. I am remaining as well. I am nearby. This place will not be remembered, and the memory of everything that started this can finally begin to fade away, as the agony of every tragedy should. And to you monsters trapped in the corridors, be still, and give up your spirits. They don't belong to you. For most of you, I believe there is peace, and perhaps more, waiting for you after the smoke clears. Although for one of you, the darkest pit of hell has opened to swallow you whole. So don't keep the devil waiting, friend. My daughter, if you can hear me, I knew you would return as well. It's in your nature to protect the innocent. I'm sorry that on that day, the day you were shut out and left to die, no one was there to lift you up into their arms, the way you lifted others into yours. And then, what became of you? I should have known you wouldn't be content to disappear. Not my daughter. I couldn't save you then, so let me save you now. It's time to rest, for you, and for those you have carried in your arms. This ends, for all of us, in communication.
And with that,
why was that so fire? Like, why was that such a damn good speech?
See, there's
Have
one
you never
extra
heard
game
that?
in the series
In a FNAF game? That's crazy.
And from any outsider,
Yeah,
looking
it's
in,
really
It
good.
looks like just a bonus mode. It's just one night, and you can choose any of the
Don't keep the
animatronics from the
devil
series,
waiting,
set them
friend.
to whatever
Shit,
difficulty
dog.
you want, and then based on how
Then Henry
hard of a
plays a silly
difficulty
prank
you
and puts
complete
one of
each
them
the
back in an
challenges,
animatronic.
You're given these kind of goofy cutscenes. It seems just like a fun free play mode, right? Well, every now and then, whenever you're killed by one of the animatronics in Ultimate Custom Night, they give you a kind of threatening message that seems directed to you, the person.
You won't die, but you'll wish you could.
I recognize you, but I'm not afraid of you. Not anymore.
It seems like there's more going on here. There's a character in the name known as Old Man Consequences. And if you change the settings to where it's just old man consequences that you're going up against, you'll be taken to a sort of...
Or if you speak Zoomer, old man find out.
That looks like Fredbear, to which old man consequences tells Fredbear, leave the demons to the demons and rest your own soul. It seems like this ultimate custom night is William Afton's personal hell. And not only that, but it is being curated by the spirit within Fredbear. If you'll remember, Evan and Cassidy are both within Fredbear itself. And whenever William dismantled all of the animatronics in order to put them into the Funtime animatronics, which eventually became Molten Freddy, it was left very ambiguous if Golden Freddy was among those who were captured. So if it's true that Golden Freddy was not brought into the fold of Ennard, that would mean that after Henry burnt the pizzeria and made all of them pass to the other side, that Golden Freddy was exempt from that. Or if Golden Freddy was a part of Ennard and was burned up in the pizzeria, then it seems like both of the souls in Golden Freddy, or one of the souls in Golden Freddy, doesn't want to let go. Now there's a lot of evidence to say that this spirit that is torturing Michael is the spirit of Cassidy, the other one possessing Fredbear along with Evan. The reason for that is some of the animatronic voice lines in Ultimate Custom Night refer to the one you should not have killed. And that couldn't be Evan because William didn't necessarily kill Evan, Michael killed Evan. However, I really want it to be Evan who's torturing William for eternity. Because not only would that be very poetic, as Evan was the first child dead that started everything, and now he's the last child who's still holding on to torturing his own father, but it also makes the story so much more personal that Evan, who was forced to live in this hell over and over again, because as his father said, he put him back together, is now forcing his father to endure what Evan and so many others had to endure as well. Either way, the spirit within Fredbear is still
a getting back at your father arc, to be honest, so I really hope it's
rather than passing on to the other side. And if you manage to complete Ultimate Custom Night on nearly the hardest difficulty, you get a final end screen of Fredbear just sitting there, twitching as the camera fades out. Is this a representation that Fredbear is going to continue to fight and torture William for time infinite, or is the fading away symbolic of Fredbear finally letting go? Who's to say? But what I will say is that completes the Five Nights at Freddy's timeline. Probably, maybe. A lot of this was guesswork and speculation, but that's pretty much on par for the series.
Was this
So my plan was to have this video
I think
as
he
it
doesn't
is,
care about security
and then
breach,
immediately
which is valid.
keep talking and run into the VHS tapes. My plan was also to make this Five Nights at Freddy's lore section like 20-30 minutes, and this is not that. So
Five Nights at Freddy's lore never
while I
takes
normally
30
would just say, oh, I don't care about making a 4 or 5 hour long video, I think it would be a discredit to the creators of the VHS tapes like Squimpus, McGrimpus, and whatnot if I put the VHS tapes now after, what's this going to be, like an hour and a half, 2 hours of video, and then start talking about their content, because their content's really cool and I want to give it the attention it deserves. Not, okay, go watch me talk for an hour and a half and then I'll talk about those guys. And also, a lot of people wanted to see the FNAF timeline or my take on it anyway, so this wasn't like lost time at all. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just upload this video as it is, just like the Five Nights at Freddy's story. And then,
I also
right
haven't
after I
seen
get done
the VHS
recording this,
tapes.
because I already have all the notes and stuff.
You
put
definitely
together
should.
For the
They're
VHS tapes,
really well put
I'm just
together.
going to record the VHS tapes and edit the two back to back. So this video will come out, and then the VHS tape analysis will come out shortly after. That way the VHS guys get their due respect on the work they put into their projects, rather than being at the end of however long this is going to.
Okay, I think it just goes into like an outro and like thanking patrons and stuff. So I think we're at the end. Maybe I will watch the VHS tapes in another stream or something.
You definitely should. They're really good. The name would make you think that they're silly, goofy. They're not. They're incredible.
I will watch the VHS tapes. I will throw out an offer into the staff server for anybody who wants to watch the VHS tapes with me, and we can do more FNAF lore bullshit together.
Yeah, if I'm around, I'm definitely down for that. I fucking love the VHS tapes.
Absolutely. Also, I didn't end up ordering from Domino's because I got to like the checkout and was like, this is bullshit. I will just go and buy myself a frozen pizza, like, for so much cheaper.
I mean, you could also get Little Caesars, but now you're gonna be one of those people that's like, ooh, Little Caesars.
No, actually, I'm not against Little Caesars. I just don't have one near me, like at all.
Oh, that's valid.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go and I'm gonna get myself a frozen pizza and I'm gonna cook it in my own house. And
Yeah, we're gonna let it cook.
And I'm gonna let it cook. I'm gonna have the smell of pizza in my house. And I'm gonna like think of like animatronics and dead children like while I'm like just in my house, you know?
I'm just trying not to get in a silly, goofy mood again. The last time you did that, you got yourself sent to endless torture.
Yeah. But I got out of endless animatronic torture and now I'm a streamer, so like I could
Yeah, how
probably do it
how
again.
did you pull that off?
I always come back, you know?
Oh, okay, I see, I
Yeah.
see. And why aren't
That's
you British anymore?
because well, you know how sometimes when I'm streaming I do like a British accent because I'm feeling silly.
Yeah.
That's me just like that I'm slipping up a little bit. Like I kind of like my cover slips, and I'm like, oh shit, they're gonna know that I'm British and an Afton and the man behind the slaughter. So
Oh, I see, I see.
yeah,
Yeah, because as we all know, everyone from Britain is part of the Afton family.
yeah, it's true. It's true. It's actually Afton Island, but they renamed it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good to be back from Eternal Torment. But you know, there's always the possibility that like I could go back to Eternal Torment. I would like to not do that though.
What if you did though, like as for content, right? Like for the
I
Vine,
could
you know,
I
and you go
could
stream
go
it.
back. I could live stream my Eternal Torment.
Yeah, you could be like getting tortured forever hand cam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. My getting tortured hand cam. I feel like I could probably get some I could definitely reach my like view quota for membership if I streamed my Eternal Torment.
I mean, in fairness, yeah, like it is eternal, so it could be like 24/7. You just like have it cut out every 12 hours to preserve the VOD on YouTube.
Yeah, my watch hours would be crazy.
Yeah,
Eternal
that might be
Animatronic
the
Torment
play.
stream when? That's, you know what? That's like totally fair. It's never been done before, so I could. I could do it.
Yeah. Unironically, you should play Custom Night though and try to do like the all 20s.
Like I could do that, but also I love myself.
But like,
I couldn't even finish FNAF 4. Like I
oh,
don't like I
I mean,
don't
that's
yeah.
yeah, because Custom Night has a lot more audio cues.
I will watch other people do it. But I am I don't know. I feel like though if you're gonna accuse VTubers of being Aftons though, like yeah, I'm purple, but like I think that the ultimate culprit for possibly being an Afton would probably be Vox Akuma, to be honest. He's British and he really likes FNAF.
Yeah, actually, I would believe it if you told me Vox Akuma
Was an
William
Afton? Yeah,
Afton. Well,
I
was
would believe it
the man
too.
behind the slaughter.
He is the man behind the slaughter. I think that he's actually the man behind the slaughter. Maybe I'm just, you know, maybe I'm Michael Afton. Maybe I'm
Wait, and that would
purple.
explain it too, because Vox famously knows pretty much everything about the FNAF timeline,
Hmm.
and that would make sense if he, lived it.
Yeah. Maybe he's William. Maybe I'm like his son and I'm purple because I died and then I had like a metallic skeleton for a while.
I would imagine that, yeah, your skin would get pretty discolored if you
Mhm.
had your entire internal everything scooped out.
I was yeah, scooping was a really interesting experience.
Yeah, how did that feel?
Um it felt like getting your inside scooped out, to be honest.
Well, I can't say I've ever had that happen, so it's like, what would you compare it to? Like childbirth, like
I've never given birth.
playing Kingdom Hearts?
I would say it you know what it felt like the feeling of like having your insides just scooped out like in eternal torment.
What did it feel like?
It felt like going to the DMV.
Oh yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, fuck the DMV.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming around. I'm gonna go and get pizza from the store and yeah.
Yeah, enjoy. Try not to put anyone else in any animatronics on the way.
I'm working on putting Xander in one eventually as like a prank. But that's my only animatronic death that I have planned right now. So if you could not spoil that for me, I would be really grateful.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay. Well, I'll see you later. I'll see all of you later. Thanks for coming by. This was fun. And yeah, we'll watch the VHS tapes sometime soon.
Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, brother. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.